For a kumbaya moment today politically, dismissing the case against Murrill did little to settle the conflict between the city and the state.
Gabby Killett reports both Murrill and Landry questioned city leaders' motives when they asked to drop the charges against Murrill.
Well, Mayor Helena Moreno, 5 city council members and a former judge sent those letters last night asking Special Prosecutor Lori White to drop the charges against Murrill. District Attorney Jason Williams said he wouldn't oppose that move. Now, White, of course, dismissed the case this morning. The letters aim to show a positive relationship between city and state officials after months of back and forth. But both the governor and Murrill questioned the motive of those letters. The case being dismissed halted any discovery into the grand jury proceedings that led to the indictment of the AG.
That dismissal of that indictment today was not an effort to simply get us all back together to be friends again. First of all, you can't be friends with somebody who wants to put you in jail for 80 years. So, you know, friendship is not really on the table. Mutual professional courtesy and professional working relationships, absolutely. We have always extended that to the city of New Orleans and its leadership, no matter how bad their decision making is. But this is about bad leadership and bad decision making in New Orleans, and they need to be, we will continue to hold them accountable for bad decisions and bad leadership. And I'll continue to tell them if they break the law, and I will continue to do my job as Attorney General, and I won't be threatened by this action. But we need to make sure that it never happens again.
New Orleans City Council President J.P. Murrill responded to the governor and Murrill's comments, saying only, quote, bless their hearts. D.A. Williams did decline comment on this matter. We reached out to Mayor Moreno, but haven't yet heard back.